The morning of June 12, 2005, in the quiet town of Laramie, Wyoming, began like any other. Sunlight cut across the wide streets, and the faint scent of pine and prairie grass filled the air. Life in the small town had always moved slowly, predictable in rhythm, defined by neighbors who knew each other's families for generations. But that day would mark the last morning of 17-year-old Hannah Mills's freedom. Hannah was known throughout Laramie for her warmth and determination. She worked part-time at a local bookstore, tutored younger students, and spent her weekends volunteering at the community center. Friends described her as thoughtful, fiercely loyal, and someone who carried herself with quiet confidence. That morning, she left home to meet friends at the park before her shift, but she never returned. When hours passed and Hannah did not come home, her parents, David and Margaret Mills, began to worry. Initially, they thought she might have stayed with friends longer than planned or been delayed by work. By late afternoon, concern had escalated into fear. Margaret called the police, reporting her daughter missing. The Laramie Police Department responded immediately, sending officers to check Hannah's usual haunts, canvass nearby streets, and interview anyone who might have seen her that morning. The town, though small, rallied behind the Mills family, offering support, distributing flyers, and keeping eyes open for any sign of Hannah. From the very start, investigators faced challenges. Hannah had left no indication of distress or conflict. She had not spoken of any threats or issues with friends or neighbors. Her school, work, and social life seemed normal. Interviews with friends yielded little, as everyone had seen her go about her morning as usual. With no immediate leads, the investigation quickly transitioned from a simple missing persons case into a potential abduction scenario. Detectives meticulously documented the scene, collected witness statements, and began to look into people who had known Hannah. Though no one immediately stood out as suspicious, the first days were crucial but frustrating. Officers used every available resource. They coordinated with surrounding counties, monitored traffic cameras, and even reached out to local businesses in search of footage. Volunteers joined in, organizing search parties and distributing posters across Laramie and nearby towns. Despite these efforts, Hannah's whereabouts remained a mystery. Each passing day deepened the family's anxiety, while the town's usual sense of safety began to feel fragile. People whispered about what might have happened, and parents grew protective, keeping children close and questioning strangers in a way that had been rare before. Months went by with no breakthrough. Investigators followed hundreds of leads, none of which produced tangible results. Tips poured in from neighbors, friends of friends, and even people who claimed to have seen something suspicious that morning. Every lead was pursued, documented, and checked, but the trail remained cold. The lack of answers frustrated law enforcement and weighed heavily on the community. As the first anniversary of Hannah's disappearance approached, the town gathered in small vigils, holding candles and sharing memories. These gatherings were bittersweet, honoring her life while acknowledging the absence that had grown into a permanent void. During this time, investigators focused on physical evidence. The area where Hannah was last seen was scoured for fingerprints, clothing fibers, and any trace of her presence. Despite the thorough searches, no evidence connected a suspect to her disappearance. The case file grew thick with reports, interviews, and forensic notes, yet the critical piece that would unlock the mystery remained missing. Detectives revisited old leads repeatedly, reviewing statements and re-interviewing witnesses, holding on to the belief that persistence would eventually yield results. Hannah's family never stopped searching. David and Margaret Mills organized private search parties, followed up on rumors, and maintained constant communication with the police. Her younger sister, Emily, shared stories at school and in the neighborhood, encouraging friends to remember Hannah and to remain vigilant. The Mills family became advocates for missing children, speaking openly about their ordeal, and emphasizing the importance of community involvement and vigilance. Their determination kept Hannah's memory alive, even as years stretched on without resolution. By 2007, 2 years after Hannah's disappearance, the investigation had stalled. Detectives began to consider the possibility that she might never be found alive. Yet they refused to close the case. New techniques in forensic science, especially DNA analysis, had begun to advance rapidly. Investigators kept evidence from the initial investigation carefully preserved, knowing that someday technology might allow them to uncover what had been hidden. Fingerprints, fibers, and other small traces were catalogued and stored, a quiet testament to the hope that one day the truth would emerge. Community awareness remained high. Local media ran anniversary pieces, detailing the case, reminding citizens to report any information and encouraging safety awareness. Residents of Laramie, though accustomed to the peaceful rhythms of small-town life, were deeply affected by the ongoing uncertainty. People changed routines, became more vigilant, and spoke to their children about safety in ways they had not previously considered necessary. The town's collective memory of Hannah evolved from simply a missing girl to a symbol of unresolved pain, a reminder that tragedy could touch even the most serene places. In 2010, the case saw a quiet revival. Advances in DNA extraction and profiling made it possible to analyze even the smallest biological samples. Investigators re-examined all collected items from the original crime scene, focusing on objects that had previously yielded no significant results. Among the preserved evidence, a small cigarette butt discovered near Hannah's last known location caught the attention of forensic analysts. At the time of collection, it had seemed inconsequential, but with modern techniques, the DNA on it could now be isolated and compared to databases. The results were stunning. The DNA matched a man previously unknown to investigators, a resident of a nearby town who had no prior connection to Hannah. Detectives immediately pursued the lead, obtaining a warrant to search his home, vehicles, and personal effects. Each step was documented meticulously, ensuring that evidence would be admissible in court and that the chain of custody remained unbroken. The breakthrough brought renewed hope to the Mills family and to the law enforcement officers who had never stopped believing that justice could be achieved. Interviews with neighbors and acquaintances of the suspect revealed subtle patterns of behavior that in hindsight seemed suspicious. While nothing had initially triggered alarm, these details now fit into a larger picture. Detectives built a timeline, identifying locations, interactions, and movements that aligned with Hannah's disappearance. Surveillance records, phone logs, and personal correspondence were analyzed, creating a comprehensive view of the suspect's activities. Each piece of information strengthened the case, transforming a long-standing cold case into a prosecutable investigation. As the investigation intensified, the suspect was taken into custody. The arrest sent ripples through both Laramie and neighboring communities. Residents were shocked that someone who had lived quietly among them could be responsible for such a violent act. For the Mills family, the arrest was both a relief and an emotional challenge. They had spent years hoping for answers, and now those answers had arrived, bringing both clarity and the painful reality of what had happened to Hannah. Once in custody, the suspect was interrogated, and the weight of the evidence became undeniable. Confronted with the DNA match, witness statements, and corroborating evidence, he confessed to involvement in Hannah's disappearance and murder. Investigators worked to extract every detail of the events, ensuring that the narrative would be complete and that the legal proceedings could move forward without ambiguity. The confession brought a mix of emotions: sorrow for the loss of Hannah, relief that the truth had emerged, and a sense of justice finally taking shape. The legal process unfolded over the following months. Prosecutors presented a carefully constructed case, emphasizing the preservation of evidence, the breakthrough of modern forensic analysis, and the consistency of witness testimony. Defense attorneys challenged aspects of the investigation, as expected, but the DNA evidence proved irrefutable. Throughout the proceedings, the community remained engaged, attending hearings, reading news coverage, and supporting the Mills family. The trial was both a public reckoning and a private journey for those directly affected, as memories, grief, and hope collided in the courtroom. By the conclusion of the trial, the jury had reached a unanimous verdict. The suspect was convicted of first-degree murder and other related charges, ensuring he would spend the remainder of his life in prison without the possibility of parole. For the Mills family, it was the closure they had long sought. While Hannah's absence could never be undone, the legal resolution confirmed that the person responsible was held accountable. The verdict was a moment of profound significance for the community, affirming the power of persistence, technology, and collective commitment to justice. In the aftermath, the town of Laramie began to process the events. Community members worked to restore a sense of security, to acknowledge the pain and loss, and to celebrate Hannah's life and character. Vigils, memorials, and scholarships were established in her name, ensuring that her legacy would extend beyond the circumstances of her death. Residents emphasized the importance of vigilance, empathy, and civic responsibility, using the case as a reminder that even in quiet towns, tragedy could strike, and the pursuit of justice required dedication and care. Investigators reflected on the case with a mixture of pride and humility. The breakthrough had been possible because of careful preservation of evidence, advances in DNA technology, and relentless dedication from officers who never closed the file. Lessons learned were integrated into ongoing training, emphasizing the importance of maintaining thorough documentation, revisiting cold cases, and leveraging new tools to resolve long-standing mysteries. The Wyoming case became a model for other jurisdictions, seeking to close cases that had long eluded resolution. For the Mills family, life gradually began to regain a semblance of normalcy. The legal closure allowed them to mourn fully, to honor Hannah's memory, and to invest in projects that would benefit others. They focused on education, outreach, and advocacy, speaking to other families who had endured long waits for justice. Their story underscored the importance of perseverance, and the notion that even when the path seems hopeless, determination combined with modern science can bring truth to light. As the town of Laramie continued to heal, Hannah Mills's story remained a touchstone for courage, resilience, and the relentless pursuit of justice. The community acknowledged that closure did not erase grief, but it provided a foundation upon which healing and remembrance could occur. Residents, investigators, and the Mills family understood that the combination of human dedication and scientific advancement had made it possible to finally uncover the truth, ensuring that Hannah's life, character, and memory would endure in the hearts of those who loved her, and in the town she had called home. After the arrest and confession, the focus shifted from investigation to the painstaking preparation for trial. For the Mills family, the months ahead were a delicate balance of hope and dread. Each day brought new information, court filings, and discussions with prosecutors about what to expect. David and Margaret Mills spent long evenings reviewing case files, ensuring they understood every detail, and preparing themselves emotionally for the courtroom. Emily, Hannah's younger sister, relied on the family's support, struggling with both grief and the anticipation of finally seeing justice unfold. Detectives remained closely involved. They attended meetings with prosecutors, revisited witnesses to reaffirm their statements, and collaborated with forensic analysts to prepare expert testimony. The cigarette butt that had finally unlocked the case was central to the proceedings, demonstrating the power of modern DNA technology to connect a suspect to a crime committed years earlier. For investigators, this case became emblematic of persistence paying off, illustrating how even small overlooked evidence could be the key to solving seemingly unsolvable mysteries. Community interest in the trial was intense, Laramie, though a small town, was deeply invested in the proceedings. Local newspapers published daily updates, radio shows discussed the case, and residents debated aspects of the investigation and the suspects' motives. Some people expressed relief that the perpetrator had been caught. Others wrestled with lingering questions about how someone capable of such violence had lived unnoticed among them. Vigilance in the town increased, with residents sharing stories about Hannah and emphasizing awareness of safety in public spaces. The trial opened in early 2011. Courtroom proceedings were highly structured, beginning with preliminary hearings and motions. Prosecutors presented a timeline of events, emphasizing the suspect's movements and behaviors in the days surrounding Hannah's disappearance. They detailed the preservation of evidence, from the initial crime scene collection to the advanced DNA analysis that ultimately identified the perpetrator. Each step was presented methodically, ensuring clarity and reinforcing the credibility of the investigation. Witnesses were called to testify, recounting memories of Hannah's last known movements, interactions with friends and daily routines. Friends described her kindness, humor, and dedication to her community, painting a picture of a young woman whose life was abruptly and tragically ended. Family members provided personal insights, recounting milestones and ordinary moments that now carried profound significance. The courtroom became a space of both remembrance and legal procedure, honoring Hannah while navigating the complexities of the justice system. Forensic experts played a critical role. The DNA analyst who had matched the sample from the cigarette butt explained the testing process in detail, describing how even trace amounts of biological material could be isolated and compared to existing databases. They demonstrated how the match was verified multiple times to ensure accuracy. This testimony was pivotal, as it connected the suspect directly to the crime, providing irrefutable scientific evidence that supported the prosecution's case. The suspect's defense team sought to challenge the integrity of the evidence. They questioned the handling of the cigarette butt, the methods used for DNA extraction, and the reliability of witness recollections. They attempted to create doubt about the chain of custody and the timing of the evidence's discovery. However, the prosecution anticipated these arguments, presenting documentation of meticulous evidence preservation and detailed records of every step taken by investigators. The consistency and thoroughness of the investigation left little room for reasonable doubt. Throughout the trial, the emotional toll on the Mills family was evident. Each day in court was a reminder of the loss they had endured and the years spent without answers. Yet, they drew strength from the knowledge that their perseverance had kept the case alive and that scientific advances were finally bringing truth to light. Friends and community members offered support, attending hearings and providing quiet reassurance. The town, bound together by shared concern and empathy, became a backdrop for the family's journey toward closure. As the trial progressed, the suspect's confession was revisited. During cross-examination, the prosecution introduced details from the confession, highlighting consistency with known facts and evidence. Investigators had documented the suspect's admissions meticulously, ensuring that they aligned with the timeline, locations, and physical evidence collected over the years. The confession, combined with the DNA match, created a compelling narrative that left the jury with little doubt about the suspect's guilt. Public interest reached its peak during the closing arguments. Prosecutors emphasized the persistence of law enforcement, the resilience of the Mills family, and the transformative role of forensic science. They framed the case not only as a pursuit of justice for Hannah, but also as a testament to the power of technology, community support, and unwavering dedication. The defense underscored the need for careful consideration, reminding the jury of procedural safeguards and the importance of impartial judgment. After hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a unanimous verdict, guilty on all counts. The courtroom was filled with a mixture of relief, grief, and quiet celebration. For the Mills family, the verdict marked a long-awaited turning point, validating years of hope, patience, and faith in the justice system. The suspect was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, ensuring that he would no longer pose a threat to the community. Following the trial, the Mills family began a process of rebuilding and reflection. While no legal outcome could restore Hannah's life, the conclusion of the case allowed them to focus on healing and on preserving her memory in meaningful ways. Memorial scholarships were established in her name, supporting young women in Laramie who shared Hannah's dedication to community and education. Local organizations organized events to honor her volunteer work, reinforcing the values she had embodied during her life. Investigators and law enforcement officials also reflected on the lessons learned from the case. The successful resolution underscored the importance of preserving evidence, the value of patience in long-term investigations, and the critical role of emerging forensic technologies. Officers emphasized the need to revisit cold cases regularly, understanding that even minor details could become crucial with advances in scientific methods. Training programs incorporated the case as an example, inspiring new generations of detectives to remain diligent and proactive in the pursuit of justice. The community of Laramie continued to heal slowly. Residents who had been affected by the case, friends, neighbors, and even those who had only followed the story through news reports, found solace in the conclusion. Town leaders encouraged ongoing dialogue about safety, support for families of victims, and the importance of community vigilance. Hannah's story became a touchstone for local initiatives, emphasizing empathy, awareness, and the role each individual could play in protecting others. Throughout these developments, the Mills family remained central figures. Their willingness to engage with the media, share their story, and advocate for other families highlighted the resilience and strength that had carried them through years of uncertainty. They participated in workshops, spoke at school assemblies, and provided mentorship for parents navigating similar challenges. Their dedication extended Hannah's impact beyond the tragic circumstances of her disappearance, ensuring that her legacy would inspire compassion and action for years to come. Meanwhile, forensic laboratories continued to evolve. The success of the DNA match in Hannah's case prompted further investment in technology, training, and case review initiatives. Analysts emphasized the importance of careful documentation, sample preservation, and re-examination of cold cases using emerging techniques. The Wyoming case became an example of how science, combined with human diligence, could transform unresolved mysteries into stories of accountability and closure. For the town itself, the case left an indelible mark. Laramie residents remembered Hannah not just as a victim, but as a symbol of community resilience. Annual gatherings, memorial services, and educational programs ensured that her life and story remained present in the collective memory. Conversations about safety, vigilance, and neighborly responsibility became more common, reflecting a community committed to preventing similar tragedies. As the years passed, the Mills family found ways to integrate the experience into a broader purpose. They focused on supporting families of missing persons, advocating for the use of technology in law enforcement, and promoting awareness about the importance of preserving evidence. Their story encouraged patience, hope, and an understanding that even long cold cases could be resolved through persistence and innovation. Hannah's legacy also shaped how local law enforcement approached future cases. Investigators emphasized the need for meticulous documentation, community engagement, and continual review of unsolved cases. The successful use of DNA evidence and the analysis of seemingly minor objects highlighted the potential hidden within every detail of an investigation. Officers recognized that breakthroughs often come when least expected, reaffirming their commitment to never abandon a case No matter how much time had passed, the resolution of Hannah Mills's case was more than a personal victory for her family. It became a beacon for the entire region. It demonstrated that decades of uncertainty could end with truth, that modern science could give voice to the silenced, and that persistent community and law enforcement efforts could overcome even the most challenging mysteries. Residents of Laramie and surrounding areas carried these lessons forward, shaping a culture of vigilance, care, and hope. In the quiet moments, the Mills family reflected on the journey. They acknowledged that grief would always be a part of their lives, but also recognized the profound significance of justice achieved. Hannah's story, preserved through memory, scholarship, and community engagement, became a living testament to her character and to the power of collective resolve. The pain of loss was tempered by the knowledge that the person responsible for her disappearance and murder was held accountable, and that her life had made an enduring impact. Detectives and forensic experts who had worked tirelessly on the case celebrated quietly, but with deep satisfaction. The resolution proved that patience, dedication, and the integration of science into investigative work could bring closure to cases long thought unsolvable. Their experience reinforced the principle that no evidence should ever be disregarded, no lead considered too small, and no case permanently abandoned. The Mills family and the broader Laramie community were beneficiaries of this principle, experiencing firsthand how it could change the course of lives forever. As the town slowly returned to its routines, the memory of Hannah Mills remained vivid. Her life and untimely death shaped conversations, decisions, and community initiatives. Memorials ensured that new generations understood her story and the lessons it imparted about vigilance, empathy, and the importance of pursuing justice, no matter how long it takes. For everyone involved, the case became a powerful reminder that even in the darkest moments, truth has a way of emerging, providing clarity, accountability, and the possibility of healing. With the trial concluded and the guilty verdict rendered, the Mills family experienced a mixture of relief and profound reflection. The courtroom's decision had finally transformed years of uncertainty into accountability, yet the absence of Hannah remained a constant presence in their lives. David and Margaret Mills spent long evenings together, discussing the trial, the years of waiting, and the ways Hannah's memory could be honored. They understood that justice could never fully replace the loss, but it had provided a measure of closure that allowed them to begin rebuilding their lives. Community members in Laramie rallied around the family in the aftermath of the trial. Friends, neighbors, and even residents who had followed the story from afar offered support, organizing small memorial gatherings and participating in events dedicated to Hannah's life. Local schools invited the Mills family to speak about safety, resilience, and community vigilance. Hannah's story became a teaching point, emphasizing that attention to detail, care for others, and civic responsibility could help prevent tragedies. For the suspect, life imprisonment marked the final chapter of a long, dark journey. Prison officials noted the seriousness of his crimes and ensured that he would remain isolated from the public. Psychologists involved in the case evaluated his motives and behaviors, offering insights into patterns of criminal behavior and the warning signs that, if recognized earlier, might have prevented his actions. Law enforcement agencies used these findings to improve investigative procedures, public awareness campaigns, and intervention strategies. The Mills family focused on tangible ways to preserve Hannah's memory. Scholarships were established in her name to support young women pursuing education in Wyoming. Local organizations created annual volunteer events, encouraging community service and charitable work inspired by her life. Friends and neighbors shared stories about her kindness, humor, and dedication to others, reinforcing the profound impact she had on the town, despite her young age. These initiatives transformed grief into purpose, ensuring that Hannah's life continued to influence the community positively. Investigators and forensic experts who had worked tirelessly on the case reflected on their journey. The resolution demonstrated the significance of perseverance and the transformative potential of modern science in solving cold cases. DNA analysis of the cigarette butt, once considered trivial evidence, became the cornerstone of justice. This reinforced a culture of meticulous evidence collection and re-examination of unresolved cases, encouraging law enforcement agencies nationwide to revisit old investigations with renewed diligence and technological support. The Mills family also engaged in advocacy. They collaborated with organizations supporting families of missing persons, sharing their story in workshops, seminars, and conferences. Their experiences highlighted the importance of persistence, the value of meticulous documentation, and the role of modern forensic technology in solving cold cases. Through public speaking and community engagement, they offered hope to families still searching for answers, demonstrating that even decades-old mysteries could be resolved with patience and determination. Community members embraced new initiatives aimed at improving public safety and awareness. Neighborhood watch programs expanded, local authorities increased patrols in certain areas, and residents became more proactive in reporting suspicious activity. Hannah's story had a lasting impact on town policies, reinforcing the principle that prevention and vigilance are essential components of community well-being. Town leaders highlighted her story in public safety campaigns, emphasizing education and empathy alongside security measures. The Mills family found moments of quiet reflection in everyday life. They visited locations significant to Hannah's life, spending time in parks where she had played, streets she had walked, and community centers where she had volunteered. These visits were both painful and comforting, offering tangible connections to her memory while acknowledging the life she had led before tragedy struck. Family traditions incorporated remembrance, ensuring that Hannah's presence remained alive in rituals, stories, and celebrations. For law enforcement, the case set a precedent. Officers emphasized the need for careful preservation of evidence, understanding that even minor items might yield breakthroughs decades later. The successful use of advanced DNA technology inspired investment in new tools, training, and case review protocols. Investigators stressed the importance of collaboration, persistence, and community engagement, highlighting that solving cold cases often requires a combination of scientific innovation and human intuition. The media continued to follow the story for months after the trial. Documentaries, news segments, and feature articles highlighted both the investigative process and the Mills family's journey. The narrative emphasized the intersection of technology, dedication, and human resilience. By presenting a detailed account of the case, journalists helped other families of missing persons understand that hope could persist even after years of uncertainty. The story inspired conversations nationwide about cold cases, forensic science, and community involvement. Local schools incorporated the case into lessons on civics, science, and ethics. Students learned about DNA analysis, the judicial system, and the importance of ethical responsibility. Teachers used Hannah's story to illustrate how personal actions and community support could influence outcomes in meaningful ways. The case became an example of practical learning, blending historical context with real-world applications and instilling values of empathy, perseverance, and justice in the next generation. Psychologists and counselors worked with the Mills family to navigate the emotional aftermath of the trial. They emphasized the importance of acknowledging grief while finding avenues for healing and purpose. Family therapy sessions helped them articulate their experiences, manage residual trauma, and explore constructive ways to honor Hannah's life. The support network, which included friends, community members, and mental health professionals, created an environment conducive to long-term recovery and resilience. The Mills family also documented their journey. They collaborated on memoirs, journal entries, and interviews, ensuring that the story of Hannah's life and the resolution of her case were preserved for future generations. These records became valuable resources for researchers, law enforcement professionals, and other families navigating similar experiences. By sharing their perspective, the Mills family contributed to a broader understanding of the challenges and triumphs involved in solving cold cases. For the broader law enforcement community, the case highlighted the power of collaboration across agencies. Local detectives worked with state and federal forensic laboratories, sharing information and expertise. This cooperation accelerated breakthroughs and set a model for multi-agency engagement in complex investigations. The Wyoming case demonstrated that combining resources, knowledge, and technology could overcome even the most challenging investigative obstacles. Public memorials for Hannah Mills became recurring events. Annual gatherings marked significant dates, offering moments for reflection, storytelling, and community bonding. These events reinforced the town's shared commitment to remembrance, ensuring that Hannah's life and story remained an integral part of Laramie's collective memory. Residents, young and old, participated, creating a culture of respect, awareness, and empathy that extended beyond the immediate family circle. The Mills family also worked to create educational programs focusing on safety and awareness. Workshops in schools, community centers, and local organizations emphasized situational awareness, personal safety strategies, and the importance of reporting suspicious activity. Hannah's story provided a tangible and relatable example for participants, illustrating how individual actions and community vigilance could prevent harm and support justice. Law enforcement agencies incorporated lessons from the Mills case into ongoing training programs. Detectives learned the value of revisiting cold cases, even decades old, and the importance of leveraging new technology for evidence analysis. Training modules highlighted the combination of persistence, attention to detail, and scientific innovation as critical factors in achieving successful outcomes. The case became a reference point for problem-solving, teamwork, and the ethical responsibility to pursue justice regardless of the time elapsed. As time passed, the Mills family maintained a balance between honoring Hannah and living their own lives. They celebrated personal milestones, engaged in community activities, and supported causes that resonated with her spirit. Yet the memory of her life and the journey to justice remained a guiding force. They recognized that the resolution of the case, while not erasing the past, had provided a foundation for hope, healing, and meaningful action. The Wyoming community, too, embraced a renewed sense of cohesion. Residents shared the collective experience of witnessing a decades-long mystery resolved, reinforcing the importance of empathy, cooperation, and vigilance. Hannah's story became woven into the fabric of the town, influencing policies, traditions, and social initiatives. Her legacy extended beyond her family, shaping the lives and perspectives of all who had followed her journey. Investigators who had worked on the case continued to advocate for the use of advanced forensic technology in cold cases. They presented seminars, authored articles, and shared insights with colleagues nationwide. The success in Wyoming underscored the potential for DNA analysis, meticulous evidence preservation, and persistent investigative efforts to bring closure to families' long-denied answers. It served as a beacon of hope for law enforcement agencies and communities confronting unresolved crimes. The Mills family also found opportunities to mentor others. They connected with families experiencing similar situations, offering guidance, support, and encouragement. Their story demonstrated the power of perseverance, community support, and trust in investigative processes. Through mentorship, they extended Hannah's impact, ensuring that her life continued to inspire and educate beyond the immediate circle of family and friends. Ultimately, The Wyoming 2005 cold case stood as a testament to the power of science, patience, and human determination. The resolution reinforced the belief that truth could endure through time, that justice could be achieved despite delays, and that communities could play a pivotal role in supporting both victims and investigators. The Mills family's journey exemplified courage, resilience, and hope, showing that even the most challenging circumstances could yield meaningful outcomes. In remembering Hannah, the town of Laramie embraced a broader lesson, that every individual's life carries significance, that attention to detail can change outcomes, and that collective efforts can transform tragedy into a legacy of awareness and empathy. The Wyoming case inspired continued vigilance, reinforced the value of modern forensic science, and demonstrated that no mystery is beyond resolution when dedication, innovation, and compassion converge. Through memorials, educational initiatives, law enforcement advancements, and personal reflection, Hannah Mills' life and the resolution of her case became a lasting influence. Her story served as a reminder that while the past cannot be rewritten, justice, remembrance, and purposeful action can shape the future. For the Mills family, the town of Laramie, and law enforcement professionals, the journey from uncertainty to resolution exemplified the enduring power of perseverance, science, and community in uncovering truth and achieving justice.